Greetings, Royals. It's Constance from QueenlyMe.com, your place for tips, insight, and inspiration on relationships, purpose, and wellness. Today, I'm rocking a bun because I opted out of wash day this week. But I'm not here to explain my hair. I am here to read to you this week's blog. And I want to ask some of you, are you preparing for a relationship or are you just pretending? Some of us have every intention on preparing properly for marriage, but have no idea that we're only playing pretend because we have all of the wrong information. Right. It's a fine line between pretending and preparing, so it's really easy to get the wires crossed. But don't worry about it, because like always, I got you. I got you. Okay. Somebody help me. Pretending occurs when you base your relationship behaviors on myths, things you've seen on TV and in movies, and what you've assumed from observing other people's relationships. Preparing occurs when you refuse to behave from what you know about relationships, but instead attempt to learn what you don't. This includes uncovering and discovering certain things about yourself, like why you feel and do certain things in relationships, your issues and your bad habits, what you desire for your relationship to look like. The first thing that you have to understand is that your success as a spouse is completely dependent on your success in your singleness. So if you one day want to be the spouse of someone's dreams, then that needs to be something that you begin preparing for now. However, if you are preparing while currently in a relationship, then you have to be very careful not to end up playing house. A person should not reap the benefits of a husband or wife without being one. But there are ways that you can practice spouse-like qualities in your singleness and your current relationship. Now, it's a proven fact that issues and arguments in most marriages revolve around three things: sex, communication, and money. So these are the areas that I'm going to zero in on. Sex. Let's talk about sex, baby. If you are pretending in this area, then you're probably giving up the treasure. You're giving up the treasure. The booty, the treasure. Get it? I know. Bear with me. Or you could be using sex or the hope of it happening in order to influence certain actions from your boo or your bae. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and assume that you are already completely past using sex for manipulation and boosting your self-esteem. I'm just going to say everybody's done with that. Okay? And it should be completely reason enough that the Bible outright says that this is something that you should not do. Read 1 Thessalonians 4th chapter, 3rd and 4th verse, as well as Hebrews 13th chapter and the 4th verse. But for all of my gray area people, first of all, pick a side already. And second of all, please know that sex is too complicated a thing to invite into the simplicity that dating is supposed to provide. The very people that complain about dating being so complicated are the very ones who are bringing the complications into dating. Sex in dating brings about an entirely different connection, both chemically and emotionally, that drastically impairs your ability to figure out whether or not a person is really someone you could spend your entire life with. Sex will tell you that they're cuddly when they're actually unhealthy. It'll tell you that they're a free spirit when they actually have no self-control or discipline. Sex will tell you that they're funny when they're really just immature. It'll tell you that they're ambitious when they're really just narcissistic and selfish. Have you ever broken up with someone and then a little while after you realize that all the things that you probably thought were cute or weren't such a big deal were a really huge deal after y'all break up? Yeah. Case in point. God is a genius for intending sex for marriage. It's only after you learn the qualities, standards, morals, good and bad habits as well as the purpose and future plans of someone, that you should create a bond as strong as the one that comes with experiencing someone sexually. Now, if you're preparing in this area, then you're probably having candid conversations about sexuality and actively learning about your body and your preferences. Sex is not an area that you want many surprises in, especially if you're celibate, or if you're a virgin, or if you're abstaining. You're gonna need it to be on the point, not on the point. Hello and goodbye. Your spouse-to-be needs to learn who you are sexually, but that does not mean that they need to physically experience it just yet. It blows my mind that we can create cures for diseases and self-driving cars, but we cannot come up with a better way to learn somebody sexually without actually having to do it. This is only a justification to do what you really want to do. Okay, you're not slick, first of all. What also blows my mind is the extent to which people, grown adults, are ignorant as to the functioning and the processes of their bodies. If you don't know the ins and outs of your own body, then how do you expect to communicate what does and does not work for you? How are you going to know what are healthy and unhealthy sexual practices? Contrary to what is believed, marriage does not ruin your sex life. Most healthy couples actually have very active sex lives. But the mistake that a lot of people make is trying to learn by doing when they haven't first done their research. And even after you do your research, you still have to determine your own styles and preferences when it comes to sex in order to communicate that and understand someone else's preferences. Nobody wants to commit their life to someone only to have bad sex. Who? Not she. Prepare for success in this area now by taking the time to uncover your own negative and positive thoughts and behaviors when it comes to this area. Now let's move on to money. If you are pretending in this area, then you're probably paying your boo's bills or giving them money. If you are preparing in this area, then you're probably concentrating on improving your own financial status. Money issues are a big deal. This is one of those areas where love does not conquer all. Okay? The money's got to be right in the marriage. And this is because it affects your livelihood. It affects your ability to acquire the necessities for your life, for yourselves and your children. While dating, we often want to prove that we can be the answer to all of our bae's problems. But it's often more important to figure out why those problems are occurring in the first place. And if you don't have all of your coins together, then there is no way that you should even be considering giving something that you don't really have an overflow of. But again, giving you the benefit of the doubt, let's say that your finances are in perfect shape. If you're dating with marriage in mind, then think about the fact that when you marry someone, you're marrying their debt and their spending habits. So instead of being so quick to just give them the money, offer help in figuring out where these deficits are occurring and how to improve them. That is what a real spouse does. Real spouses will teach and challenge and mature each other in ways like that. So unless you're willing to cover their financial deficits in the future, don't even start now. The idea is to marry your best friend. So if you really want to bless them or meet a need for them financially, then here's what I suggest. Think about your best friend other than your boo. And ask yourself this: would I give it to my best friend, and would I expect it back? And if I do expect it back, then when? And whatever your answer is, handle it exactly that way with your boo. Now let's move to communication. If you are pretending in the area of communication, then you're probably talking too much or too little. And if you're preparing in this area, then you're probably learning what your communication issues, strengths, and styles are. If you want to be in a healthy relationship and eventually get married, then please understand that your communication is going to have to be on point. Like, for real, for real. And before you think, oh, I got that, talking is easy for me, please understand that I'm not simply talking about the ability to communicate. I'm talking about the ability to communicate effectively. There is a humongous difference. Some of us talk too much. And what many people never learn is that the most important part of communicating is actually listening. But this doesn't mean to simply be quiet. There's such a thing called active listening. And this means that you aren't just listening in order to respond back, but to fully understand what the other person is actually saying to you. So while they're speaking, do not think about what you're going to say once they finish. What you need to do is listen and understand. And it's okay to pause for a moment just to soak in everything that they just said so that you can effectively respond back to them. And it's always a good idea to repeat what you understood from what they said so that there's no confusion. Because confusion during a conversation creates frustration. And frustration creates anger. And anger creates actions and words that you're going to regret later. On the other hand, some of us need to speak up. Talking too much is actually better than talking too little. Because if you talk too much, then at least we can eventually gather the information that we need. But very little can be accomplished by holding all of your thoughts and feelings inside. These are the very people who end up exploding one day because of all the things that they left unsaid. I personally had an issue with this, but I finally got healed from a disease called people pleasing. And guess what? That issue cleared right on up. Okay, amen. This is something that's like a daily deliverance type of thing. When you have the issue of talking too little and holding things inside, you're always going to have to give yourself that push in order to really just get past whatever fear you're experiencing in this area and just finally say what you need to say. So get to the bottom of what it is that has you muzzled and ask yourself this: what's the worst thing that can happen if I say exactly what's on my mind and heart? And then ask, what's the best possible outcome of you actually saying what you need to say? At some point, you're just going to have to push past the fear and speak up, because if you don't, you're either always going to get the short end of the stick in your relationship, or you're going to have a very frustrated and confused spouse. Hopefully, these tips helped you gain some clarity on the differences between pretending in relationships and actually preparing. Everybody deserves the relationship that they dream of, and it is possible for you to have everything that you want in a relationship, but you have to do your part. So make sure that you're preparing, not pretending, and make sure that you come back next week so we can do this all over again, because you love it, right? Right? See you guys next week.